guys, it's Keltic from Wicked Wood Productions. I'm gonna show you how to zhuzh up a sign, download it from Design Space. I typically work with wood, so my background is going to be a wood background that I'll either color or stain. I'm starting to do Halloween stuff now, so we'll work on something like that. My pieces that for this particular piece is going to be square, so I'm going to work with a 10-inch square. So I'm going to make my page size 10 inches by 10 inches. I'm going to make my border. I'm going to double click the rectangle tool and it'll give me an outline for the page. I'm going to bring that down to 9 inches. Why 9 inches? I'm going to give myself a clear edge on the border, and there's a couple reasons to do that. One, when you cut wood, it's never 100% exact. It'll be like 9 and 15 sixteenths or 9 and 7/8 by 9 and 7/8 or 9 and 7/8 by 10. It's never 100% exact. Plus, white space is your friend. White space means any blank area that's not taken up by design. I don't want to do square corners, so here I have 3 options that I can do for corners. I can do round it, inverted or scalloped corners, or they're called chamfered or ticket corners. It's just a straight cut. I like the inverted corners, so we're going to collect our shape tool. I'm going to grab my node in the corner and I'm just going to bring it in a little bit, usually about a half an inch. If you look here, you can do an exact amount. You can unlock and unlock this option. Say I wanted just 2 corners done and the other 2 square. I could do that. With signs, you don't see it so much. You see that more in printing. But I want to do half-inch corners. So we'll do 0.5, 0.5, and because my control is locked, it'll make everything the same. Now, just a plain line is boring, so we're going to go to our contour. We're going to make sure we're going inside. We're going to do a 1/4 inch border, so I can do 0.25, hit apply. I'm going to choose my pick tool. I'm going to pick my thing. I'm going to control K. It didn't pick the inside, so let's try that again. I have it picked. You see both nodes are there now. That's picked the whole thing with the contour. I'm going to hit Control K so we break it apart. Now, I'm going to make this piece black. I'm going to grab the middle and I can make it a different color. We could fill it with a pattern if we wanted to. I could just put the lettering in it and let the background speak for itself. What do we want to do? Let's try, we'll import the sign piece and do my coffee runs on broomstick. My broomstick runs on coffee. I can read English today. I'll import that right there. Now what we're going to do is we know that this box is 9 inches on the outside with a 1/2 inch inlay, so that's a 1/4 inch on each side, so it's 8.5. So we want to make the width of this about 7.5. We're going to hit P, that will center. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Control Z. Control G to group it. Now hit P, it'll center it on the page. Control U to ungroup it. La, la, la. I'm going to just grab this and space it out just a little. So you don't have so much dead space top and bottom. I'm going to just take the text here, grab the middle, hold my shift key so it's proportionate, and I'm just going to make this just a smidge bigger to take up the space. Same with the runs on. Same with the coffee. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, I think we want to do something fun behind here. Now, you could leave it simple like this and just cut it out of vinyl, put it on your sign. Just make sure, if you're using wood, that you have either a nice good coat of paint that has been cured. It's got to sit for at least 6 hours, preferably overnight, to put the vinyl on it, or the vinyl is going to come up. I don't care what you do to it. If your paint or your finish is not cured, your vinyl is going to peel. You cannot put regular adhesive vinyl on a wood substrate without putting some sort of finish. It will not stick. My favorite paints to use are either a exterior latex, a chalk paint. You can use an acrylic paint. I personally like to see wood grain, so I would typically use some sort of finish. You could use watered down acrylic paint and make your own stain. Um, I for colors I like unicorn spit if I'm staining, or if it's not a huge area, you can do watercolor pencils or distress crayons and move the pigment in the background. Let it dry after you get it the way you want it, blend it, and then put a couple coats of poly on it. Make sure that you do at least 3 coats of poly, especially if you're brushing it. Your first one is going to be kind of heavy because you want to level out any tooth that you get from the wood. You can sand a piece of wood as much as you want, but as soon as anything wet goes on it, whether it's paint, water, stain, poly, you know, varnish, glue, whatever, you're going to get tooth as soon as that water starts absorbing into the grain of the sand inside of the grain of the wood. It's going to lift and it's not going to feel as smooth as it did when you sanded it. Don't worry about it. Sand your wood really good before you start everything. You're going to get it wet. It's going to get a little bit of tooth. You're going to be fine. You're going to put your heavy coat of poly. You're going to let it cure. I use a 2-hour dry. My 2-hour dry on that first coat, I let it dry at least 4 hours. If you have the time, let it dry overnight. Take a 240 or a 320 grit sandpaper, do a very light buff over the top of it, wipe it down. I use a very mildly damp paper towel or a mildly damp baby wipe. I wipe it down really well, make sure all the dust is off of it. Let it air dry for a couple minutes, even if you like kind of fan it in the air, and then put my second coat of poly on. Your second second and third coats of poly do not have to be heavy, but you want to make sure you have full coverage. Poly, as long as you are not dragging your brush through it, will level out. Once that second coat is dry, again, I use it 2 hours, so mine 2 to 3 hours. You can go in and you're going to do a light buff with a 400 grit sandpaper. That's usually either like black or purple, depending on which brand you use. Wipe it down again, do that final coat of poly, let that dry, and then you're going to either buff it with a piece of brown paper bag or a 40 steel wool. And again, at that last stage, you're just brushing off any like dust or particles that floated into your poly at the end of it, and you're just going to brush those burrs off. At that point, your piece of wood should be almost like glass or a piece sliding your hand over a piece of mirror. Very easy to do. It just be patient with yourself in doing it and go with the grain of the wood, whether you're polying, painting, whatever you're doing when you're finishing. Because if you don't, that's when you see your brush marks. Now, I think that we should do a background on here. If we're not going to do a color background with stain or whatever, if you're going to want something more than just lettering. So I'm going to click on my white section that's inside. I am going to go to File Import. I'm going to go to my background folder. These are my Halloween backgrounds. I like this purple one. I'm going to bring this down to oh, excuse me. I'm going to bring this down to 8 inches. Okay, it needs to be a little bigger than that. I'll bring it to 9 inches. Now my dilemma is, do I want it behind or on top of the border? Because it's kind of cool looking like that. But it's hard to see the text. I think you're going to lose some of the text. So how about we swap this out? And we change this border. I have to go into my wireframe. This it's giving me a hard time grabbing it. So I'm going to make this just a little smaller for a second. I don't know why it's not. I'm going to go back to my eyedropper tool because that's where my color is for the purple. I'm going to come up here and switch apply color, and I'm going to make that purple. Go back to view, enhanced. Let's make our background black. I'm going to put that down to another layer. Select everything else, object, water. We're going to bring it to the front of the page. Yes. We want to make this black also. And now you have this same design, and you can do sublimation. Sublimation on wood, equally as easy, but instead of doing a color on the background, what you're going to do is you can either leave it the way it is and have that pale wood color. If you do that using lighter tones, it will give it like a little bit of a yellowish tone. So you have to watch your color palette. Or you could take white and whitewash the wood. You could do it with white stain so you can still see the wood grain, or you could do it with white paint, whichever your preference is. With this, because of the swirl and stuff in the purple, I would probably white paint it. Let it dry. You can use acrylic paint, it's fine. Let it dry. Put your couple coats of your poly, just like we talked about before. And after that the last coat is cured, absolutely let it cure overnight before you heat set it, okay? You're going to print out your sublimation like you normally would, attach it to your sign, medium pressure, about 45 seconds, and that's how you would sublimate it onto wood. If you have any questions, obviously you can just message me, leave a message below, or direct message me on social media. I'm happy to answer any questions, and definitely show me what you did with this tutorial. Have a great day.